Okay, it's a little after 6:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hello? Can we get started? So I'm Jerry Morgan. I'm the county administrator and the sanitary engineer. Still a member, so I still am part of Water Resources, even though I'm with the commissioner's office. We got a couple just some information to get started. First thing is we did get an opinion from the prosecutor's office, and we cannot use ARPA funds for the assessments. The county, though, has reviewed the overall project, and there are some things we are going to do with the overall items. So, first of all, we're adjusting the interest rate down to 1.33% from 1.85. So there's some savings there. We will be eliminating the $300 permit and application or permit and inspection fees with for each of the properties, and we will be providing some reimbursement grant for service connection costs up to $8,000 per lot. So it will be some reimbursement there. The final, how we actually are going to do the whole thing with that reimbursement is yet to be determined. But some of the things we are planning on doing is the property owner will still be responsible to obtain quotes for the service connection. The property owner will still be the one making the contract with the inspector, with the installer. But what we will do is we request, in order for the money to be utilized, we will request that each property owner obtain 2 quotes for the service connection, and then submit those to Water Resources to review. And what we'll do is then we will be reviewing those quotes to make sure that, because it's county money that's being utilized, that they're good quotes, they're valid quotes. Somebody's not trying to charge you $15,000 for a $5,000 job, and I'm not using those numbers out. I'm not saying that's cost. But so we'll be checking those, and we'll be authorizing one of those quotes to be utilized to determine the funds that you would get from that grant to the individual property owner. So if you got 2 quotes, one was for $5,000 and one was for $6,000, we would, looking at it, assuming they're good quotes and they're from viable companies, we would authorize the $5,000. If you wanted to still choose the $6,000 because you like that person a little bit better, you could do that, but the additional $1,000 will be on the property owner.
Once this news gets out, won't every contractor say $8,000?
Yep.
They know that's what they can get.
I understand that, but
Is
we're
that
trying.
what's going to happen?
That's my assumption, is probably that's going to happen, but we're trying to provide the property owners with some relief, at least for the cost of the install.
So are we definitely getting up to $8,000 each?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We still have the full permit to tie it, even though we don't have to pay the $300?
Yes, you'll still have the full permit, because the permit basically is how Water Resources sets up the account, and we get inspection set up. There still will be an inspector there, we're just not charging for it like we do with normal connections. So like I said, we will finalize that, we will put that all in writing, and it'll be sent out to each property owner, along with a list of currently licensed installers. That does not mean you have to use those installers. Anybody can come in, I can't say anybody, but somebody can come in and get a license if they wanted to. If it came down to, somebody who has a backhoe and equipment to do the work, and they want to give you a quote. If you, as the property owner, take the responsibility on, you're pulling the permit, you're listing yourself as the installer, you can still work with that person to do that work.
Now,
If
am I
you do-
still able to get 8,000 if I pull the permit and do the work myself?
That's actually where I was just going, thank you. Is the next thing is, if you install it yourself, we're not providing you $8,000. We will provide you the cost of your materials and the workmanship.
And labor.
So it'll be,
What about labor?
well, if you're doing it yourself, there's no labor cost.
Hey, who hired you? And how about fuel, equipment, machines, gravel?
Do you work for free?
piping?
If you have equipment, you have the equipment, or you rent it? If you rent the equipment, you submit those invoices, we will reimburse you for those invoices. Again, up to $8,000.
Do you work for free?
Do I work for free?
Yeah.
Not right here, right now, but just yesterday, I hauled 4 yards of 57 limestone
asking
to
you
my
that.
backyard for my project.
Why would
None of
I?
those things seem to address the $28,000.
The $28,000 is still going on as an assessment.
No, it's good, thanks.
Now, I thought at the last meeting, the auditor promised us that would not happen.
Well, I cannot speak for the auditor.
Where's the auditor?
Where is?
I have no idea where he is. He's
out of
not here.
town. He rides in this by, live stream.
Well, Frank's over there from the auditor's
Yeah, I'm
office.
here from the auditor's office if there are any questions.
Yeah, we got 2 people, I believe, here from the
Ron,
audience.
Lenny, and myself.
Excuse me, what was the prosecutor's reasoning for not using the ARPA funds this time? We've gotten 3 different excuses already.
Yeah.
For the assessment, it's the same thing. The project started before the March 3rd, 2021 date.
I showed you screenshots where it said that the homeowners do not have to, you can provide funds to the homeowners if the project was before the March 2021. I gave you
You
screenshots.
cannot reimburse
They don't have to look.
for costs that were before March 31st of 2021.
Did you read the final rule?
Yes.
You read it?
Yes.
And you would have seen what I'm talking about. Do you have the paperwork with you? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So what is the process gonna be? I've given a lot of people prices on their laterals. So when is everything gonna be rectified and people can get this going?
There is one final issue that we're still dealing with. There's a number of small items that the contractor needs to fix, but there is one issue we're still dealing with that will not allow us to start up the wastewater plant. So as soon as we get that done, we'll be letting everybody know when that happens.
What is the issue?
They're out there working on it this week.
What is the issue?
It's an issue with the wet well leaking where the pump station is. So we can't have the additional flow coming into the system, so that needs to be fixed.
Can you put the prosecutor's opinion on your website, please?
Yes,
Do you have a written opinion?
yes.
That's how it's going to answer. So the $10 million exclusion is not applicable.
No.
It's not true.
Why?
The $10 million exclusion still has those requirements with it with regards to the paying back the loans and things like that.
Okay, so the county is still not, you're gonna, might be, like overall, what did you like consider putting into this project from the county?
What do you mean, consider putting in this project?
Like, so we're not receiving any money from ARPA, okay, which we thought we were from March 9th on, right? You finally got an opinion from the prosecutor, right? And you still are not, you're gonna provide $8,000 maybe. So do you have like an overall number, like we're gonna put in 1.2 to the project, we're just gonna like throw, like, here's a phone and catch it if you can? Like, here's my issue, I still have a problem with, when we came here originally, 9 years ago, it was like 28,000. I was like, 28,000, that's not bad. You know, we're good. 22,000. Right. So then, now you're might throw $8,000 at us. You still didn't rectify the 1.5 from the Department of Water Resources that we're paying back as a overall number, not on usage. So we're still paying that back, right? The overall number is still massive. The overall number, and what is the interest rate variation? Was it 1.85 to 1.33, a half a point? So, did you have an overall number, what you could say, like the county funded this for the project?
No, we did not start with an overall number of what we were gonna fund. We're starting with the individual issues of the assessment, the service connections, and, you know, and the fees for the
All right.
permit. and
So,
inspection.
with you still, okay, so this is still a bogus situation, real bogus. Did you talk about anything going forward, like how you're gonna solve this for somebody else going forward?
Well, we've had some discussions, but there's really nothing the county can do at this
The
level. We
county
would have to
has a ton of
contact,
cash.
we would have to get the Ohio Revised Code changed to do that.
All right, so let's pivot a little bit here to the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant that you put in, okay? If there is development across the street at the golf course, is there any provision that they're going to help offset the cost?
No, because it would be brand-new development that would require an increase in the size of the wastewater plant, and they would have to pay for that increase, all those costs.
You'd have to increase the wastewater treatment plant the way it is today?
Yes,
Okay, and they would pay for that?
yes.
They're not gonna pay for any of the construction that went on, the piping and all that, just the increase?
Well, if they're gonna be doing it, if they did a development there, they'd be paying for all their piping that would go in.
But they won't be paying for the main lines that we pay for.
And the property, and the.
Where would they tie in? They'd probably tie in close to the wastewater plant.
We're still paying the bulk of the
Oh, yeah,
wastewater treatment plant.
that's the ours.
I didn't get
We're
you.
still paying the bulk of the wastewater treatment plant, are we not?
You're paying for, right now, you're paying for 40,000 gallons that's going towards this project. Or 50,000, sorry.
We're paying 50,000 gallons, right?
Right.
Right. So are there any plans to develop the golf course?
Not that I know of. I know that when we first approached the owners of the golf course about purchasing property on the golf course in order to install the wastewater plant, they had some thought about putting in 90-some homes. And we told them, if that's what you want to do, that's up to you. You got to go talk to Munson, and Munson shot them down.
Now,
You, Frank, or from the auditor's office, do you have any information on the ARPA money and why it got, why the prosecutor?
I have not seen the prosecutor's opinion, no, and Chuck hasn't either. He's been pursuing other courses of action in case the ARPA money or the regular general fund money from the commissioners didn't work out. So he's been looking at order of revision appeals. He's actually already put 113 appeals in the process for all the homes to appeal evaluation. That's a very complicated process, not a really user-friendly one, so he's pursuing another one under his chief assessor role in terms of looking at an equalization rate for everyone, which presuming that the commissioners were not able to provide ARPA money was his concern. And so Chuck is working on his own plan and is planning on having a meeting for the next week or two with everyone here, his own meeting to explain what he thinks he can do.
So you haven't seen the opinion?
I have not seen the opinion yet.
You have the opinion?
Yes.
Why haven't
I
we
got it.
seen the
I got it.
prosecutor's opinion in public, in writing?
Because I just got it at 4:14 today.
Do you want to go over it one more time?
How long have they had the opinion?
I just got it at 4:14 today. The official opinion.
What were you gonna talk about tonight?
I've been pushing the prosecutor to get the opinion for me by this meeting. And if not, if we weren't able to talk about that, we'd at least be talking about the service connections.
The
And what I
meeting
want
2
to do.
weeks ago, you said that the prosecutor had an opinion. He took 2 weeks to send you a written opinion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just fax and email.
That's insane.
I can't speak for the prosecutor. I'm just telling you what I know.
Yeah, Chuck, so, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Burek for coming. My question is what does it take to get all of the commissioners here? Obviously, this group of people don't get their respect. You're a great meeting leader, but where are the other two?
This would have had to be an officially advertised meeting, official commissioners meeting. Because we didn't have the time to properly do that. With
48
this
hours.
meeting, Mr. Commissioner Dvorak was the one who was volunteering to be here.
Wait a minute. You didn't have
Second
time
thing
to
is,
officially
You need one
advertise this
day.
meeting, and yet every one of us got a letter?
You got the letters, because we were not gonna make this an official meeting, yes.
You did have the time to do it though, that you just said you didn't.
They're never here, so, and the thing is, so when the plant was built, you added capacity, you said, oh, well, you know, a couple meetings ago, you said, we'll see what the capacity is once everybody connects. Well, according to the guidelines, it allows for so much capacity per home. Why so much? You know, because we got 4 unaccounted for commercial buildings over at the golf course that are allowed to tie in for free. We didn't make that deal. You made that deal.
Which one is the banquet hall?
I got some information. That's what I'm here. May I?
Sure.
This is one reason why I feel the county should bear a lot more responsibility than they are. I'm told that the system is permitted at 49,000 gallons per day. We've heard the number 50 thrown around, but according to the Ohio EPA, it's permitted at 49. That's 434 gallons per house. According to the Ohio administrative rule, the required flow is 120 gallons per day per bedroom. Most of the houses are 3 bedrooms. There's a couple that are 4, or 2, including mine. But even if we accept 113 parcels, that's only about 40,000 gallons per day. So I'm wondering why that extra capacity is there. Well, and I realized that we're not dealing with just 3 parcels from the Legend Lakes. We're dealing with 2 houses and a clubhouse. Well, a clubhouse, by the same Ohio rule, requires 50 gallons per day by capacity. And they're advertising on their webpage that their banquet facility can accommodate 150. So at 50 gallons a day for 150 people, that's 7,500 gallons. And that makes up a big bit of that $9,000 difference, 9,000 gallons difference between the 40,000 that our residents require and the 49,000 that was actually designed. So it's my feeling, you know, that the country club, you know, that got a really good deal when they sold the property. It's not just 3 tie-ins. It's almost 9,000 gallons per day additional capacity that plant had to be built to accommodate.
No. The agreement with the golf course was to provide them the service they currently have, the amount of capacity they currently have, which is their wastewater treatment plant currently has a capacity of 5,000 gallons a day. They average, I think it was around 2,500 gallons a day.
Well, in order for them to legally tie in, the capacity would have to be over 7,500 gallons.
They would be charged, they would be allowed 5,000 gallons a day, because that is the agreement that we have.
So why are we paying? Why are we paying for that?
Because one of the things you do, when you design a wastewater plant is you design it for capacity. These wastewater plants are built in 10,000 gallon a day increments. We were over 40,000, we were at 43,000, I think it was, with regards to the design requirement. So we had to build a 50,000 gallon a day plant. We permitted the plant at 49,000 to avoid some of the issues that the EPA puts in if you go to 50,000 gallon a day plant. It changes the class and goes a different route. So we had the additional, we knew we were gonna have some additional capacity in the plant. So when we were working with the golf course, we knew we had that additional capacity to work with them.
I have a question. I have a paper here, the environmental assessment from the Ohio EPA, and right in the assessment it says, as noted by the county during facilities planning, none of the larger nearby properties in Chardon Township or adjacent areas to the south in Munson Township will be served by the proposed new wastewater infrastructure.
Correct.
Specifically says The golf course is tied in.
That's part of the agreement.
Not, according to the EPA. You told the EPA that nobody was tying in. This was dated 2020. The purchase agreement was dated 2019. So you essentially lied to the EPA.
No.
Yes.
It was always included in the design.
I'm sorry?
It was always included in the design.
Well, did the EPA pull this out of their butts?
Yeah.
I
can't
mean,
speak.
The EPA doesn't, in their permit, there's no mention of a golf course or clubhouse or anything, it's just capacity.
I don't care. In this document, it says they're not tying in. Wait, I'm not done yet. Oh, I did want to ask
How do I
about,
do that?
I want to ask about the address too. How come all the documents say the address is 11094, but that doesn't exist on the GIS? It's 11088. I was just curious about that.
I can't speak for the address.
I mean,
It would have been the address we would have got, it would have been the address we would have got from the engineer's office when we pulled the driveway.
You might want to update your records. Wait, I'm not done yet. By financing about 3.6 million, I thought we were financing 3.1 million.
We're financing what, almost 5?
No, this is just for us, the residents. How much is the residents financing?
We have total loans of $5,284,000.
Okay, and the
We also
rest?
had a $300,000 grant. That breaks up, the loan itself breaks into $46,758 a parcel.
So how much are the residents
What
paying
is the
for
total of the
project?
residents' loan?
Each resident will pay a total of $28,000 plus total interest of $6,000 for 30 years.
So going back again, what's the county
Steve,
gonna put in?
what is the total
The
amount of the
difference.
loan for us?
What's the difference?
There's not two
Total loan is
loans,
what I
there's
just
one,
said,
there's
5
two
million.
loans, but there's one, it's
Right,
all
and I'm
for
asking you,
one
is it
project.
3.1 million or is it 3.6 million? This document says 3.6, you didn't tell us 3.1. We have a right to know. All right, moving on.
Go for it,
3.6
Linda.
million of the project cost through for 30 years, blah, blah, blah. Estimated interest rate at 1.12%. What happened to that? Which will save the county approximately $940,000. Who's getting paid the interest? Who do we pay that to?
The loan we have with Ohio EPA, the actual federal EPA.
Right, but are you guys paying an interest to the EPA? Because everything I saw on there, it was 0 interest rate.
No, it's not 0 interest rate, it's 1.33%.
You guys are paying that
That's right,
in the loan.
yes. And we did have it originally at 1.85, dropped down to 1.33.
Okay. Okay.
You want to absorb that interest for us here. You're not going to absorb that.
Well, let me be clear, what you're asking for, because the way Water Resources is set up, it does not get general fund money. It is set up that way legally. So what you're actually asking for when you ask Water Resources to provide additional funds for this project, you're asking the people in Aquila, the people in Parkman, people in Thompson, people in Bainbridge, the service the customers to cover those additional costs.
Why are you putting ARPA money into a closed system? You're giving them 1.5 million?
Because we're upgrading their wastewater plant. They already paid for their sewering plant
They
20
paid,
years
not the
ago, 30
county
years ago.
or
No.
grants or anything, they paid
They
themselves.
paid for themselves,
I
yes.
thought 2/3 of Thompson's project was covered. I think you were quoted in the paper saying, yeah, we got ahead of it.
It was
And we were
covered.
able to secure.
Because we were able to secure grants. The same thing we
Right.
tried to do.
Where's our grants?
We tried to get grants for this project. We tried for numerous years. We even went door to door doing salary surveys, trying to get in within the LMI. It's not our rules, not the EPA's rules, it's the grant funding programs, USDA, other OPWC, the other funding sources that have their grants. And they have their rules and regulations on what they do for providing grants. So we attempted to get as many grants as we could ahead of this project before it got started. Thompson, we were able to get them because we actually did salary surveys there, and they determined them to be poverty level. So we were able to get more funds for
You were
that.
unable to get grants. You were able to get grants for Geauga, Thompson. I even think Parkman got grant money when they did theirs.
Yes.
We get no grants. So
Got
who cares what they
300,000.
think? They got a portion paid for by the government. Right?
Yes.
Right.
And you got 300,000, we got 300,000 for this. And granted, it's not as much as other areas, but that's what we were able to obtain.
And we also got, I think, 500 from Grindel. Diane Grindel got 500 through.
We have not gotten anything from Diane Grindel yet.
No, this is.
She's made a request.
No, this is a few years back.
No, we never got
I
anything.
thought that there was 500 that came from the state. So, real quick, so they were all beneficiaries of government help on their projects. Were any of them emergencies like ours?
No, because not to get into a history issue, which I know we will as soon as I say this, but in Thompson and Parkman and some of the other areas, the township trustees did not send a letter to the EPA about the environmental issue.
Okay. All I can say is, this is an urgent situation. Everybody else got government funding, at least partial. And now, we look back and we look at the CARES Fund money that was very liberally interpreted to buy trucks, shovels, chainsaws.
So each person had a snowplow.
Everything,
Every
and
one
it
of
was
your people
very
has
liberally
their own
interpreted.
snowplow.
New cars for, I think it was the prosecutor, I think a new truck for the head of the engineer's office. All included in that CARES Act money, the first COVID money that came through, instead of PPE, other things, it was liberally interpreted. Well, why is this unable to be liberally interpreted? Because I'm hearing of other cities using it for like trucks and fund other types of programs that they've had slated for years.
With the CARES Act, there's two different things here, right? CARES Act and NARPA. With the CARES Act, that was all specifically coronavirus issues, COVID issues. That's what they had to be approved.
Right.
So they each got a snowplow? You could have used it for something else, hand sanitizer?
It was used for a lot of different things. That was one of the things, was in order to keep snowplows running during the wintertime, the decision was made to provide funds for that, to allow them to be running. So we didn't have to have them sit while they were being cleaned or.
All these years you've done without everybody having their own individual snowplow.
When you had a pandemic going on, there's a different story.
Snowplows broke down.
That's something that's passed. That's what decisions are. We could not use the money, just like with the ARPA funds to pay for the assessment, we could not use the CARES Act money to pay for this project.
Can you read us the prosecutor's letter so we know what it says? Please.
Okay. Dated May 9th, 2022, addressed to me, Dear Mr. Morgan, I'm writing you in follow-up of your opinion request, letter dated March 18th, 2022, and several follow-up conversations with you and the BOCC members. The final rule FAQs were published on April 27th, 2022. I will attempt to answer your questions utilizing the guidance the Treasury Department has published. The Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, SLFRF, are a part of the American Rescue Plan. The total projected amount Geauga County will receive is $18,190,220. To date, the county has received one half of the funds, $9,095,110. There has been a subcategory created within the SLFRF monies, the revenue loss eligible use category. This allowed the county to claim a standard allowance for revenue loss up to $10 million without proof of any actual loss. The revenue loss eligible use category contains much less restrictions, thus we are really operating out of two buckets of funds. The original fairly restrictive SLFRF funds and the revenue loss eligibility use funds, which can be used for government services. These government services include any service traditionally provided by a government unless Treasury has stated otherwise. There are two general restrictions that may direct payment of SLFRF funds problematic for the construction of the Chardon Township Sewer Project. However, as discussed later, there are ways to use these funds to ease some of the financial burden for the residents. A key restriction that applies across all eligible use categories includes no debt service or replenishing financial reserves. Since SLRF funds are intended to be used prospectively, recipients may not use SLFRF funds for debt service or replenishing financial reserves. This prospective intent for the use of funds is also found in other key restrictions under the SLFRF funds must be used for costs incurred on or after March 3rd, 2021. Further costs must be obligated by December 31st, 2024 and expended by December 31st, 2026. These restrictions would serve to prohibit direct payment towards the project using SLFRF funds. Your letter focuses on comments made by the county auditor relating to this project. There does appear to be a disconnect between what I have heard from each prospective office. In any event, the issue there would be, can the BOCC use the SLFRF funds for planned prospective projects and then utilize the excess funds created through traditional revenue streams to pay off the project loan? I believe that this concept is possible, however, this could only be done using the revenue loss eligible funds. Since the time of the auditor's comments, circumstances have changed. The revenue loss eligible funds are already committed, and that commitment is tied to an agreed judgment.
Who's that
Therefore,
tied to?
even if it was, it's tied to an agreed judgment entry.
Repeat that. What was that for? Repeat that one second.
Tied to an agreed judgment entry. Therefore, even if it was possible to engage in essentially a shell game between SLRF revenue loss funds and revenue for water resources to amass the funds necessary to pay off the project, this is not an available option. Since the $10 million revenue loss portion is not an option and you must use the remaining SLRF funds, more restrictive funds prospectively, your only option would be to look at what aspects of the project which have not been initiated would be eligible. A significant issue for the residents that has been brought to my attention is the tie-in to the system from each individual home. This represents a significant upfront cost versus the assessment which is spread over a number of years. This issue then becomes, can the remaining SLFRF funds be used to pay for these tie-ins? There are 4 categories for use of SLFRF funds. One being the investment in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, making necessary investments to improve access to clean drinking water to support vital wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. The SLFRF program provides substantial flexibility for each jurisdiction to meet local needs within these eligible use categories. Obviously, a key element to this project and the remediation of the ongoing water pollution is to make sure all the households connect to the wastewater treatment infrastructure. The significant financial hardship that has been placed on these property owners by the EPA findings is severely inhibiting the ability and timeliness of the hookups. After reviewing the guidance from the Treasury Department, it is the opinion of this office that the BOCC can use the remaining SLFRF funds to pay the necessary tie-ins as part of the Clarendon Township wastewater treatment project. This can be done either through direct payment or a reimbursement program. While these are policy decisions outside the scope of a legal opinion, I would recommend that the county reimburse or provide a grant to the homeowner for the payment of the private contractor to do the work. I hope that this opinion provides the necessary guidance you need moving forward. If you have any questions or require any further assistance, please do not hesitate to contact me. Very truly yours, James R. Flays, prosecuting attorney.
Jerry, right at the beginning of the final rule, it states that you have the discretion to give homeowners money from the ARPA funds. There aren't any, I mean, there are a time constraint, but we're all hurting right now. So it's after 2021.
Right, it's not a debt.
It doesn't have
It's not
to
a
be,
debt yet.
you don't have to say that it's for the sewer, whatever. We are hurting. at the tune of 28,000 each.
The problem is the assessment is associated with the loans that were taken out for this project by the county.
Fine.
As soon as those loans were taken out, that started the time clock.
We don't have a loan though. You say that it can't be used for loans, that's your loan. You have the loan. We have assessments.
Your assessments go directly to paying off the loan. It does not, it goes through, the funding goes into the
Jerry,
county general
so
fund.
is
and
our
goes-
priority, and I bet you $1,000 when I contact the office of the Department of Commerce, I am going to find out, and they're gonna tell us that we are entitled to money. And I would ask that you not put the assessment in place until I do that.
In the finding you just read, it specifically said prior debt. These residents do not have prior debt right now.
Yeah, that's right, we haven't
It's the
incurred any
resident
debt
that's.
until you put the assessment in
No,
place.
it's not. You don't, these
You have the
residents
debt.
don't have prior
You
debts.
haven't even started the system yet. We don't owe you anything.
I know, I don't owe you anything.
We owe
So
you
the-
something when you provide a service. You haven't provided a service yet.
Right, and you haven't tied in yet.
Exactly.
You haven't had that assessment.
That's
The
right.
assessment, you're not gonna pay on the assessment until next year.
Why don't you just abandon that new plant and build a new?
Yeah, build a new one for us.
Well, there you go.
It's still gonna be 50,000 gallons a day, folks. It's not gonna go away.
But
The
they'll
cost of
get
that
the
is in this.
No, don't try the golf course in this time, I don't know.
It's still gonna be
how it
50,000 gallons a day. Did you not hear me before? That when we did the numbers, it came up to be more than 40,000. Wastewater treatment plants are built in 10,000 gallon increments.
But that's all right, the ARPA funds will cover it.
And I do not believe that our community, has more than 300,000 gallons per day. I absolutely do not believe that. I think 20,000 was built over. Oh, and by the way, I talked to the
Well,
Ohio
no.
EPA today. Why aren't the two houses next door tying in? That's mandatory.
No, it's not. They are not within the subdivision that was
The
defined.
EPA said
And
anybody within 300 feet, regardless, must tie into the system.
they're within 300 feet of a force main, which they're not permitted to tie into.
I explained explicitly what was going on in our development and everything. Anybody within 300 feet, mandatory tie-in.
Why would you make it higher? They are part of the Berkshire subdivision.
They can't tie it.
but Not included.
You have a private pump station going into a public force main. Does not work.
Why can't you change it? Why
You
can't
read,
you
when you read
change
that
it?
opinion, you read that opinion, you said that the excluded amount could have been used if it wasn't accounted for already.
Right.
Okay, when,
Who's it accounted for?
It is accounted for upgrades to the courthouse that are part of an agreement from a lawsuit that say Sharp
when
put
did that
against
all?
the county.
So you
So
got the
we're
money.
losing funding because of your lawsuit?
The decision was made that this funding will go towards the courthouse. That-
Geez, you
Which the
talk
courthouse,
about
which the courthouse, let me be clear, the courthouse benefits the entire county. It does not benefit 113 properties. One of the things, let's be clear, folks, one of the things that I think needs to be made clear is you're asking for a sixth of the money we're getting from ARPA funds for not even a tenth of the population.
Not enough
That's
votes.
bad.
It's not about voters, it's about making sure that the money we spend, it benefits all of the residents or a majority of the residents of the county.
Okay, so the Department of Water Resources is a private fund, right?
Yes.
The Department of Water Resources owes a debt, true?
Yeah.
They took out the loan.
Goes to the
Accurate?
assessments for the property.
I'm trying to connect the dots. They took out the loan, correct?
Yes, for the project.
So you're asking us to pay back the loan, 4.5 approximately, right? $28,000 assessment plus the fee that you're gonna charge us every other month, right?
Yes.
Are you gonna freeze that fee?
No, that fee will get adjusted as needed over. That fee covers the cost of operating the plant. If we froze the fee, when cost of electric goes up, cost of fuel goes
How
up.
much money do
all
you
that.
have in your account right now? Steve?
First of all, the loan's taken out by the county, not by the department.
Okay, and you have to service it.
Right, and we've
Right.
already paid the first installment on it. We're gonna pay the next installment
Okay.
1 July.
The county has the lateral ability to infuse money into the Department of Water Resources, does it not?
Yes, line budget.
Yes.
Yep.
Jim DeWart, does it not? have the capacity to put money into the Department of Water Resources?
I believe it does, but
Okay.
I'm not an attorney.
So.
They would have to provide that, to my understanding, they would have to provide that as a loan to Water Resources, which would have to be paid back.
Give them money
Because
all
they're
the
an
time.
enterprise fund. The county does not give the money to Water Resources. Water Resources does not work on general fund money. Water Resources operates on the fees from the customer.
Did you ask for a resolution for $3.1 million, please?
Hold on 1 second. So what if we don't tie it? What if we decide as a group, again?
Then the health district will enforce the connection.
Now it's the health district. Okay, what are they gonna do? Come to our property and start digging?
Yep.
No, they will enforce it through the courts.
Like what?
Why
Just like
did they
it
come out
happened
to
in
the
the.
properties 10 years ago,
What's that?
when they were called? Hey, there's septic in the creek, there's septic in the ditches,
2012, yeah. started.
people can smell septic, and then no one responded.
I cannot speak for the health district. They are not an entity that is under the commissioner's authority. They are
So walk
a
me
separate
through
entity.
walk
in
me
the
through the,
county.
because I'm not, I don't
They're
think.
under
I'm-
their health board. Sorry.
I'm not gonna tie it, but, so just walk me through my process, what's gonna happen.
Me neither.
You don't tie in within the time frame that the county is giving the tie-in. Anybody who hasn't tied in will be turned over to the health district for enforcement of the connection.
What is
that?
6 months or 1 year?
What does that
6
mean?
months.
Oh, so, okay, again, we're still not following Ohio Revised Code, which is the law. We're following our own time frame.
Can you quote me the Ohio Revised Code section? Because you mentioned that a number of times.
611-9-2, within 1 year. 300 feet from the residence within 1 year. 1 year. I read it over and over and over and over again until my eyes were bleeding.
Yeah, it's a what we're dealing with is the findings and orders from the EPA with a deadline. So that's where that time
Right,
frame.
but
It's
the
not.
EPA isn't.
It's not a sewer, it's not the sewer line that went in by, that section of the Ohio Revised Code, to my understanding, and I go back and reread it because I haven't read it in a couple of years, but that is dealing with when you have a developer who puts in a sewer line, runs a sewer line past your house to go out to his property and installs that. That section of the Ohio Revised Code deals with that line being in there, and that's where the 300 foot comes in, where they would come back and force folks to tie in.
Because that's the only notice that we have 1 year from the time that the sewers are available, 1 year to connect, or we are in violation of the Ohio Revised Code. So it's 1 year from the time sewers are available. Sewers are not available, as you just stated, still waiting for parts and things like that. So, 1 year, that's this time next year. So you can reread it. That was the
reread
big
it.
portion of the lawsuit, if you remember.
I have another statement, for just some feedback. You mentioned that it's not fair for the residents, or 118 residents, to recoup monies from the county. 113. What about the people that pay for the school systems that don't have children? I mean, there's some disconnect here. It doesn't matter. What about the playgrounds? Some people don't have children, but they're paying for a playground. You can't use that argument.
Yeah, I mean, like you fixing Mud Road, I never use Mud Road.
Dog park, same thing.
The residents of Mud Road pay for them.
Those fees, those levies that are put on there are put on by the voters.
And we didn't vote.
Oh.
This is not, so
Seriously.
they're what I always like to refer to as self-inflicted wounds, because the voters voted them in.
Well, you
So you have to vote to put a property or park, you maintain it.
Tell you what,
All of these
$28,000 you say is bad.
None of it goes up for vote. It's all done within all of you guys. And you determine what you're gonna do, where and how. It's not put up for vote. Just like the monstrosity, the monstrous building that you're building, that didn't go up for vote. It just did, oh, we need it, we're gonna buy it.
That's a slap in the face, by the way.
And
I will tell you that.
we're going to now choose to spend ARPA funds to renovate the hangar at Geauga Airport, so that there's a helicopter at Geauga Airport with a hospital that makes billions and billions of dollars. When there's a helicopter up at Lost Nation and there's a helicopter at Portage County, and we're right in the middle. But we're gonna spend, I think, the meeting, they were talking 1.4, 1.5 million renovating the hangar space for a for-profit industry. And that's a determination that.
That is
has
one of
to
the,
make.
that is one of the requests that have been made.
Right.
That has not been approved yet.
That's what I'm saying, so we as taxpayers, we don't get a benefit, somebody else gets the benefit. They don't have to expend the money to have service, because guess what, the helicopter, when they come pick you up, isn't for free.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right, so whether they have to fly 5 minutes longer from Lake County or 5 minutes longer from Portage County, and I was a flight nurse, so I know how long it takes. The 1.2 or 1.6 million you're gonna spend at Geauga Airport is ridiculous. And if you left it up to the voters, I guarantee you, they'd all say it was ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, the money could have been better spent.
You
But
do
the
know
problem
that
is it's
people are
never
gonna lose
passed.
their
It's
homes,
just
right,
decided on.
over this?
They don't care.
Do you know that people are going to lose their homes over this
You're
assessment?
gonna go to court and all this other crap. I don't understand. I don't understand why you would not disclose the fact that you had the money earmarked for the county. You could have used the $10 million exclusion on our project, true or false?
Under the rules, yes, we could have.
Yes, you would. Except for the fact that the money was already accounted for, correct?
It was not accounted for until a couple weeks ago, last week.
Yes.
The money can, listen, folks, you wanna complain, you wanna argue, that's fine. But the fact is, ARPA funds cannot be used to pay the assessment. That's the reality of the rules that were put in place. Not by me, not by Geauga County, by the Treasury. They put that money in place for future projects, not to pay for past
So
projects.
why do you have $3 million appropriated for this year for the wastewater treatment plant charge?
Because we had to have that money in place for projects as it was going on. to pay for it.
In 2022?
It's carryover of what was originally put in.
So you just
So
have money
you start
sitting
with-
there in case something happens?
Well,
Because you can use ARPA funds if you want.
They're just building.
There's $3 million left over in 2022? You told me the project's not paid for?
we're still paying, we are paying on costs.
Is there
to go
some
forward.
accounting here, though, like a ledger, like minus, trash,
Yeah, you
you know,
guys
like a
said,
whole line item thing? Accounting, general.
You got a
ledger?
special, especially.
There's something like that.
Yeah, there should be. Steve, you asked Tom for
I just-
a project file so they can keep track of all the funds. Can Jim have access to that?
Well, I think we're comparing apples and oranges here. Yeah, they're
No, we're
not.
not. We're comparing our homes.
From day
Well, if
one.
you have the answer there.
Just understand, for government, when government spends money, money has to be appropriated and put in a separate account until you have, so you cannot spend money saying, oh, we might get it in the future. It has to be appropriated in. So you appropriate funds into an account to pay for the cost of that project. The money is put in there. We've paid for it over the years as we moved along. We have funds that are still there. That was the appropriation that got transferred over. There was money that Water Resources put in to this project as a seed before, so that we could start the project and get projects. And then when the funds came in from the loan company, we would reimburse that. And then at the end, that money will be taken and put towards the next project where we need to have a certain amount of dollars ahead of time before we can start the project.
So can Jim have a line item of the numbers so he can look at them? I think that it's public record, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I would love to
Since he's
see.
a CPA, I think that would be.
Can you make sure the dates are on there? Can you see the dates? Because I think the date has a big deal, right?
Yes.
The date's a big deal. That's when you spend the money. Like, I could borrow money all day long, never spend it, I'll just send it back.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you could be getting the additional funds, the ARPA funds for everything we want to pay for before that, after that.
It's a shell game that's not.
It's a shell
and-
game.
And unfortunately, the problem is the way Water Resources, because Water Resources is on its customers, they take out loans for when they have a big project coming. So that money comes in. You can't take a loan out and then use it for something else.
I'm not saying you were taking a loan out for something else. I'm saying, did you pay for every step of this thing, this project, before that deadline? If not, then why can't you get aid for stuff?
Because that deadline is based on when the encumbrance, when the money was set aside for that project, when the loan was taken out. And that was back
See
before.
a line item of what the cost, where the loans are.
Yes.
Question, okay, looking at the facility that you put in this Taj Mahal. Who designed this? Because I'm for sure, I don't think we needed a concrete pad and concrete driveway. I think a gravel driveway would have sufficed. I think we need split face block, so it's ornamental. I think regular cinder block would have done just fine. I don't think we needed ornamental plantings and a black powder coated fence. I don't think we needed any of that. So who signed off on this?
It was approved by the commissioners.
Oh, okay. Again, we didn't have any input because we would have said the cheapest.
Right,
The cheapest, instead of the Taj Mahal with a nice little ornamental strip around it, glass block windows, insulated garage doors, thick, beautiful concrete driveway. Who the heck's gonna go in there every day? Does it need to be, I think it was 6 inches thick, I think the spec on it was 6 inches thick. It's just, this is the policing of our county.
So this is where we're at. This is all you're gonna do. This is it.
That's where we're at, yeah.
This is it. So you guys snuck in the county appropriation, so you couldn't use the $10,000 exclusion for us. And you guys reported that in Maple Leaf, made sure you reported in Maple Leaf so everyone could see it, and now we're out, based on the ruling.
Is my understanding the assessment is due tomorrow?
If you're paying for it, yes. If that is the date that's in the resolution.
Tomorrow.
If you have.
accepted the plan?
Yes.
Just give us some money, know that it's gonna work.
You know it's gonna work.
At some point, we need to set a deadline for that, so that we can move forward with the assessments, with placing the assessments. Now, that goes through a process that we have to go through, so that we have to set that deadline for, that's what people want to pay up front. Otherwise, it goes on your.
Is anybody paying up front? Raise your hand.
I'm
I'm sorry, how many paying? Is anyone paying up front?
They were health costs, it doesn't
You don't
matter.
have, did we have any notice on that, that we were gonna have to pay for notes on this thing? That there was a deadline on this? I never saw anything.
You said you're gonna set a deadline for the people to pay their assessments or whatever. Are you setting a deadline for the contractor to fix the wet well?
Yes.
Is he leaking?
Yes, he has
What
been
is
said
the
that he's
deadline?
working on it this week to get it done.
So it should be
So it
fixed by Friday.
should be fixed by Friday,
Okay, so then that's when
Well-
everybody should be able to start to be tied in, right?
assuming we go through, we still have to do some testing on it.
Well, if you're charging me tomorrow, can I tie in tomorrow?
We're not charging you tomorrow.
You just said it was.
Are you paying upfront?
No.
Then we're not charging you tomorrow.
That's a show game.
The money, anybody who wishes to pay upfront would need to pay by tomorrow. Now, if somebody walks in with the $28,000 check on Friday, we're not gonna say, say no.
Oh, no.
The reason for that timeline is so that we can determine who is gonna have an assessment on their property, because there's a process that has to go, that has to go through.
That process must start when the plan is available, not an arbitrary timeline. The plan is not available. If I came in with a $28,000 check tomorrow, would you look me up? No. So that deadline is absolutely illegitimate.
That
You
deadline
can't
is
charge
not,
for assessment.
I'm not charging, we're not, that deadline is if you wanted to pay up front.
Right, what if I want to pay up front? What if I come to you with a check tomorrow morning for $28,000? What will happen?
We would accept that check.
And what?
And you would be given notice of when we were able to.
Well, you'll be given notice when I can pay. When you assess me, you'll give notice when I can pay. This is not, you don't charge for service you can't provide.
This gentleman behind you said his hand up for a while.
You've been working on trying to allocate ARPA funds for a month and a half, a little longer, right?
Well, we've been looking at it for a while.
2 weeks ago, we had a meeting, right, with the city,
Yes.
and that ARPA money is gone, right? Am I wrong? I'm right. I know.
The 10 million.
It was gone 2 weeks ago.
Just tied to
So
the
all
fact
of a
that-
sudden, we've been discussing using this money, but all of a sudden, magically, 2 weeks ago, you had a meeting, that meeting was about using money, right? And that money was used 2 weeks ago in that meeting. It goes, yeah, absolutely, take the money. But again, we've been discussing this for a month and a half, 2 months, however long we want to talk. But yeah, 2 weeks ago you had a meeting, why all this was supposed to be getting worked on. And now that money's gone, 2 weeks
Right,
ago.
you had the
But
opportunity.
again, some people in the group probably don't have an idea about that meeting 2 weeks ago, do they? Well,
Is
but
this
again,
tied
that's what-
to, is this tied to the business about the county building the building outside of the city and then the city suing the county?
Yeah, so we've been in
So
negotiations
this was
for
a, so the
a couple
county
weeks,
brought.
which you're not allowed to talk about negotiations outside of the.
Right, but this is about the county moving outside the city limits.
The county is not, the county seat is not moving outside the city limits.
Correct.
What is being moved to the new building is the service-oriented offices of the county.
But that
So they're
wasn't-
more centralized within the county.
All right, but that was kind of violation of some agreement that the city had with the county? Facilities being moved outside the city?
No, the city was suing over that move because they felt that the Ohio Revised Code required it also.
So, question, real quick. Why is it just the exempt funds, the 10 million? Because this is a future project, so the ARPA funds could be taken out of the other $8 million for the courthouse.
There will be some taken out of the other for the courthouse.
You could use 3 right now and then use 15 when you get the rest of it.
They want
You
this
could use
construction
3.
start.
Mr. DeVore, did you know about, when you guys, all 3 of you, when I asked if you were going to use, if ARPA funds were available from the prosecutor, when the prosecutor ruled and we asked if he ruled in our favor, would you vote yes on the use of ARPA funds?
Yes, to defray some costs.
And the 3 of you said yes. Is
No,
that
Ralph,
accurate?
Ralph did not answer.
Only,
No, so we're under the impression that ARPA funds could have possibly been available, and they are, except for the fact that you guys made an agreement to suck $15 million out of it, destroy the whole $10 million exclusion, and had none left for us. We've been going at this for 2 months, and you guys knew the whole time what you were gonna do with that money. Why didn't you just tell me the truth?
I
Why do I
know.
gotta sit here and do this?
I
What
think,
is the purpose of you doing this?
I think Mr. Dvorak was the only one that said that he would agree to support
They
that.
all 3 said they would.
No.
I like you were looking at spots on the ceiling.
No, they were all hemming and hawing.
They all 3 in unison said, yeah. They did. I'll find it.
I just watched it on YouTube.
Well, the lawsuit's been going on for a year and a half, and during, negotiations back and forth, you can't talk about ongoing
It has
litigation.
nothing to do with the lawsuit. It's everything that you knew you were gonna do with the money when you got it. You knew you were gonna do it,
You had a
you knew you were gonna
decision.
remodel that county, the courthouse. You knew you were
We
gonna
just finised the negotiations about a week
Hold
ago.
on, hold on. So if you,
With the city
you
of
got the
Charlotte.
ARPA money, when did you decide that you were gonna use it to, what if you didn't get the ARPA money? Would you still do the county remodel?
No,
You wouldn't, regardless of how the opinion came out with the city.
we'd still be in court.
You'd still be in court. Okay, so the fact that you got money to remodel the county, were you able to negotiate, the courthouse, you were able to negotiate with the city? You
Say that
basically
again?
used our money, Jim.
Yeah, you did.
You used our money.
No.
The money you could have
Everybody.
used for us.
We use the citizens' money.
All right,
Not,
Jerry.
not the residents, not the residents of Berkshire Heights. No, seriously, this is, the decision to do the courthouse has to do with the entire county, not 113 lots.
See, there you go.
out of the entire county. And really, out of those 113 lots, you're talking about 75% of them that still have original septic systems from the 50s and 60s.
Really?
That is the reason why we're here today. We are here today because of the failing septic systems
That's fine.
in
Why
the
do you have to get because
subdivision.
of the money?
Unfortunately, the EPA will not allow that. That's why we fought the EPA to try to allow us to do that. And they would not permit it once the findings and orders were issued.
People are saying they're gonna lose their houses. How do you feel about that? Like,
He doesn't care.
He
don't care.
I'm heartsick for everyone here.
I do. That's why we spent as much time ahead of time trying to get grant money to keep keep this cost down.
Well, it's
That's
not
why,
enough.
that's why Water Resources is picking up $14,000 of the $42,000
It's not enough.
per lot cost.
It's not enough.
Jerry, you had the money to help us. You gave it away.
You know, I'm from Boston, I'm involved in a little bit of politics in my town and whatnot. This stinks, and there are ways you don't need to hire an attorney. You just request investigations from Commerce, and there are other avenues I can tell you. This stinks.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even begin. I've read
Go
so many
ahead,
documents.
go ahead and investigate.
a
You
lot
did
of
nothing
things.
wrong.
Oh, well, good.
You've done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
There's easement,
Oh,
that's
that's
all,
okay.
it has so many lines in it. And the best one right here, based upon the critical need for the project to protect the public health and the environment, no significant adverse impact to local economy is expected to result from this project.
Yeah.
That is the most disgusting line out of like 20 lines in this document. How could you say that? People are gonna lose their homes. And you don't give a shit.
You just,
Excuse me, about that $28,000, are you still planning on putting it on real estate taxes?
Yes.
But the auditor has said that's not gonna happen, it can't happen.
this
I mean,
stinks.
raise their real estate taxes all then, I mean, this is how people lose their homes, because we don't pay the real estate taxes, then they're gonna take the house.
It's unbelievable.
And I don't, the auditor is not done trying to find ways to go around this. You know that, I know that, we all know that.
But you're really ready to charge us $28,000 for it right now. That's another thing that
How many
has
people
us
here
upset.
are retired and don't work? Could any of you afford to have your real estate taxes increased enough? I forget the number offhand, but Stephen very nicely said we have a record.
Single moms.
I think I'm gonna start charging rents.
And I called the auditor's office.
It's less than 11
Cars
cars
right now, and to get extra money.
Okay, so I think Prosecutor Blaze is absolutely wrong in interpreting what he wants to, so that you don't have to use the ARP funds. So I plan on contacting the Department of Commerce Inspector General. If they turn around and say, absolutely, those ARPA funds can be used, would you use them to help us pay that assessment?
If we got a official opinion from them,
Oh, I'll get.
I would put it back
one.
before the commissioners to make that decision.
Blaze is wrong.
Yeah, he doesn't, just because he's your prosecutor, doesn't mean he's right.
I know.
I can give that to my son who's an attorney.
That's like
Yeah.
asking, that's like saying, okay,
Yeah.
he is the legal counsel for the commissioners.
Right.
To go
Doesn't
against,
mean it's right.
to go against, no, it doesn't mean it's wrong either. But you ask the question of your legal counsel. When you have something you do, you need to do. You ask your question of legal counsel. If legal counsel tells you one thing, and you go and do something completely different, you're gonna get screwed.
Why didn't you ask your legal counsel, well, what about the beginning of the final rule that says you can disperse money to any homeowner that's impacted? That has economic deficiencies. And there's no conditions upon that. You have the discretion to do that, to hand out money to people that need it. Why didn't you ask Blaze why you can't use that, do that?
We asked him to review the ARPA funds.
It won't matter. You don't have the political will to do it.
Then you need a new attorney.
You don't have the political will to do it. You don't.
The other thing is.
You don't help us out, you're not gonna help Little Punderson out, you're gonna help the next one out, you're not gonna do anything, it doesn't matter to you. It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't.
The problem is, Jerry, what you just said, it's not 75%. I want to be visually verified and walk my community. Something that, through this whole thing, the water department hasn't done. Hasn't inspected, hasn't had clear records.
I walked the entire subdivision.
I talked to every one of you. We have 44 updated septic systems from original out of 113 homes. So approximately 43% of the homeowners that have already had to shell out $20,000. Those people are getting affected even more because they are, some of them still have home equity loans that they have to pay, and they can't go to the bank and say, oh, the county says I now have to connect to the sewer, I can't pay you anymore. So now, you had that bill, and you had this bill, and then you had the water department bill, you had the sewer bill. that we're paying off the additional, because back in the day, the county was gonna pay the other half. No, county's upfronting the money for the other half, but we're paying it off.
That's
You're
right,
not.
the debt.
The money that you're paying pays for operations of the resort. There's a portion of it that goes to capital improvements, $4. Take that $4 per month and multiply that by the 113 properties, and they
Over
don't
30 years.
get anywhere close to the money that they're paying. That money, that portion of the county bill is being paid by all of the customers of water resources. That's the way water resources is operated.
Jerry, today I am asking you to put aside 3.1 million or 3.6, whatever the number is you have told us, aside from the ARPA funds for when the Commerce Department comes back and says that we can use that for that. You agree to that right now? To put
Department of
3
Treasury makes the decision.
I'm sorry?
It's not Commerce. Department of Treasury.
The Department of Treasury gave the Department of Commerce $3 million to do any
Treasury, gotta get
fraud
it
or
from
corrupt
Treasury.
investigations. So they can look into this.
That's right.
And I will contact the US Treasury too. Do I have your word that you're gonna put aside 3.1 or 3.6, whatever it is, $1 million in case they come back and say we can use ARPA funds?
Because we don't want it to disappear like the others.
Yeah, exactly. We want that put on hold for us.
The remaining 18 million has not been reviewed or approved for any.
And we're asking.
Jerry, can you promise that you will save that money?
I don't have the authority to set that money aside.
Mr. Dvorak.
That would be the commissioner.
Can you promise that you'll put aside $3 million for us if the Treasury and the Department of Commerce comes back and says that we can use ARPA funds?
I really think that we're too far down the road with their process for the $3.1 million towards this. I come here tonight to just reiterate that you have full communication with me, and what we come up with, like I said, I lobbied the best we could, these guys and the other commissioners. Tonight, they said they're gonna lower the interest rate, they did.
You threw us a bone.
$8,000 towards 113 residents, plus waiving all the fees. It's gonna cost, out of the general fund, almost $1 million for that gesture.
It's gonna cost water resources.
Yeah, you guys,
Linda, can I have a chance?
you built this monstrosity and we're asking you to put money aside. Put it on hold in case we are allowed to use ARPA funds. You can't do that. Okay,
Cannot
thanks.
make that official decision.
I'm done with this dog before they show us around.
You know, go, make your recommendation and get back to it.
Are you going to take it to the people who can, is what she's asking. She's not saying you make the decision. You promise us, you promise me, if you just promised her that I will take that to the people who need to make that decision.
I will bring that to the commission. I promise you that.
Let me drop 2 more reasons why I think the county should feel a little more responsibility. First of all, I think it jumped at the selection of that property on the corner. You could have saved a lot of piping, and if you had tied in, if you had asked Frank Wilson, he'd been interested in selling his property and using that right at the creek. It saved all that pumping up almost 1,000 feet up the hill. And he wouldn't have had to have another 9,000 gallons to run a dining hall banquet facility. So I think that was mishandled. They should have looked at that property. The other thing is that I have it on pretty good authority that it was the county. You keep bringing up the township lateral this reported it correctly.
Folks, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Hello?
Yeah, you guys had your chance. You should leave.
Go ahead, sir, I'm having a hard time hearing you, but if you can speak up,
You can hear me, I'll talk
we
to
can
you.
hear over these folks over
I
here that don't have
understand.
any respect for
That's
you.
why I came up. Well, I think they're still talking, but.
Thank you.
I have it on pretty good authority that it was the county, not the township, that first alerted the Ohio EPA.
See the letter, we had the original letter that went from the township to the EPA. And the findings and orders say that.
The county called them on site when the spill happened. that they
You,
audited.
the letter was sent by the trustees, this
After
has
we
gotta
were-
stop.
before
The
that
trustees
happened.
sent a letter,
Whoa,
and
whoa.
then the EPA
No,
came
don't
out.
raise your voice.
Jerry Morgan,
Here's our
the county
minutes.
tried to stop it, couldn't. It was already in action, the EPA was sent loose. And a lot of the critique that the county's getting is should we direct the EPA, but they never come to these meetings. even though they're
Oh, I agree, it's all.
I'll provide you a copy like I did.
But I'm not gonna stand for anybody saying that the township ordered
That's
it
it.
again.
That's public record. We were told
What?
to
It was
file a
posted.
nuisance complaint. That was
By
not.
public health. We don't do nuisance complaints. GCWR doesn't do nuisance complaints. It's public health that does
It
it.
goes back to October of 2013. Look it up. It's in our records.
You know what, the history of who called what doesn't.
Yeah, the blame game doesn't help.
Then
I
don't
agree with
stand
you.
in a commissioners meeting and say you should vote these guys out.
I didn't
That's
do that.
bullshit.
I didn't do that. And you know as well as I do how much we put into this ahead of time, trying to do it. Because you sat in on those meetings that we had with the EPA.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of pushback, Jerry, don't give me that.
There hasn't been any pushback the whole way.
There's been pushback.
Yeah,
There's been
pushback by private citizens
No.
brought up, yes.
No, it has
Yes.
not. It has been,
The only
the
thing
county
that's
did
really
a lot of
put a
pushback ahead
significant
of time.
delay in this whole
At some
thing
point-
was a lawsuit filed by a private citizen who was being affected by this. You guys haven't been representing us. You haven't been, you can say you've been trying all you want, but I can't believe it. You can't find $28,000 per citizen to help us out. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. Especially when you built that monstrosity, like they said, the 3 ton. I was in the Army. How many of you guys were in the military? What were military buildings like? They were basic, they were sturdy, they were like painted gray because they had to be painted. They were flat, that thing, like you said, the Taj Mahal. That is a ridiculous structure for what it's built for. You never consulted us about that.
The building that split faced brick, cinder block building.
I'm not sure it is.
Yeah, yes, that's what
Are
we're
you
talking
talking
about.
about the plant or you talk about the?
I'm talking about the plan. And, you know, you talk about, well, history. Well, history is history. I agree with that. But somebody has to pay for it. And it shouldn't be us. If mistakes were made, the people who made the mistakes need to take care of them. And you've already
I
did it.
can
You've made a whole lot of
stand here and
mistakes.
honestly say mistakes were not made on this project. I did
Well,
not, nothing that we did was a mistake. This was.
So you did all this on purpose. So you our porches on purpose.
Because you all had failing septic systems.
I didn't.
I don't know, whether you like it or not, you were in a subdivision, whether you like it or not, you were in a subdivision with failing septic systems that caused an environmental issue. When the EPA
You don't
gets
even know
involved,
that.
when the EPA gets involved.
This first meeting,
You
I
didn't
asked you guys, do you know the exact source of where the problem is coming from? You said no.
It's
You
the
just
sub-
said
And
that
that is
if
proven
you
in
find
court.
it in this
They don't know the
project,
sources.
you can.
You don't get 1 million parts per million of fecal in a sample.
Really?
From 1 or 2 lots.
Okay.
You get that from a whole lot of lots.
114.
Not necessarily
How do you know they're coming
114,
from
but
outside?
it all flows down to that point.
No, it
Okay,
depends
wait a
on if there
minute.
was flow, it depends on the temperature. Bacteria double at a rate of about every 40 minutes under the right conditions.
All right, well, there's
So,
10 properties that
doesn't mean-
flows the
Well,
other
it was
way.
flowing when they tested it.
There's 10 properties that don't even flow towards the creek.
Right.
You know, there's 5 back on Omar, whose backyards, which is probably where the septic system is, flow the other way. But they were included. Yet we have 2 houses within the development that flow to the creek that weren't included. But who made up this grand plan as to which houses would be included? You can't say it's Berkshire Estates because you left 2 houses out. I've been pointing that out since the first meeting. Who made those decisions as to what the boundaries were?
The decision was made based off of the flow to the point where the tests were taken.
Okay,
The
but
other 2
there's,
houses are on the other side of the street.
Yeah, coming from
There's
Omar at
10.
the end of Henning, it goes that
And
way.
it's a subdivision that flows that way. That's what the EPA decided, was it was a subdivision. The findings were to say sewer Berkshire Heights subdivision.
Well, that would include even the new houses down along the back of Henning, but those weren't included.
yeah, they're all included except the 2.
Oh, all the way at the end, with the cul-de-sac. On Howard,
Oh,
rather.
Yeah. Which were not part part of Berkshire Heights subdivision. Yes, they are. They were separately platted at a later date, so they don't fall into the subdivision.
But how do we know they weren't contributing?
Well, they're flowing the other way, just like 10 houses on,
I know I'm not contributing because I'm not tied in. I have a new septic. It's in the back. 44 other people have new septic, so they're not contributing. And
That's
in
not
the court
the
case,
septic.
if you remember, Dave Sage said, oh, I grew up on Omar. I've known for years that this has happened. The health department has known for years, yet the county did nothing. Nothing.
it still hasn't,
It still hasn't.
as far as the.
And so, us as citizens, you have to understand, we're afforded rights. Every other citizen in the county gets a right. Your septic's failing, the health department comes out, issues you a citation. You have so many days to get it fixed. We didn't get that. We weren't afforded that right because either the health department isn't doing their job, because what came out in court is they've known for years there's a problem here. Why wasn't it ever addressed? So either whoever's in charge of the health department is wrong, whoever is in charge of the water department isn't doing what it was supposed to previous to you, and maybe probably previous to you. But you're in charge of septic, you're in charge of...
We're not in charge of septic. The health district is in charge of septic.
Okay, you're in charge of the...
Public sanitary and
You
public
said
water.
everyone had a failed septic, so are you taking control of it or no? Because you just stated to us that I have a failed septic. You're wrong. We're gonna put that right there. Because in 2016, when I purchased my home, because the county's on top of their game, right? They came out, did an inspection that wasn't needed.
Was
because
it public
this
health that
issue.
came out?
Whoever does inspections, they'll hold on one or two contacts, so I can't take right to that. Came out, inspected my septic, said, got a clean bill of health. I went out, and we whacked around it, I chipped my lid. I called the septic guy, I go, hey, I need a new lid. He gets a new lid, he goes, you probably replace the bulb. So I took care of my system, like a responsible homeowner, like you stated. They would fix it. But yet, you're penalizing me, saying you just said 10 minutes ago that I'm part of the issue. Am I really? Because your guys, that the county hires, because you represent the county, came out, passed it, me as a responsible homeowner, fixed what needed fixed, but yet you just stated that I'm the problem because I have a failed septic. So explain to me, I don't see why.
You have,
I-
there's
I-
failing septic systems in the subdivision.
There are failed.
Yeah.
There are
Which ones?
fix of that.
Yeah,
Which
why
ones are
are
failing?
Yeah, we.
Which ones are failing? Please tell me.
Which ones, and it doesn't matter at this point because the
It does, because you
EPA.
said
It mattered at
I
the
have a
beginning
failing
when it
system.
should have been known, which if the county health, if the health district was doing their job. Now, we're as citizens, we don't get to call these shots. We have to abide by the rules of the health district, right? We don't get to tell them what to do, they have to tell us what to do. Okay, so when you look at all the people that have put in new septics, we're not part of this, but yet we're part of this because the county lumped us in as one part. And when I met with the EPA, this is 2 weeks after they came down with their rules, I went down to Twinsburg. I sat with them and I sat with the director and he says, yeah, but your septic's eventually gonna fail, so we're just gonna make everybody connect. I have a permit for a septic that I put in. Just like I have a permit for my house. Now, when the building code changes, do I have to change my house to the new building code? No, I have a permit.
And then you never get the meeting we had a long time ago. We all asked, I'd be more than happy to pay for a test and have my septic test. And many people said, yeah, I agree. And even though Ralph was sitting up there, I don't know what he was looking at, I'm not really sure. And the other guy, and I asked him, I go, Ralph, you signed this paper here. And I had a copy of it. He goes, I didn't sign it. Well, unless that's forgery, you signed it. And I held it up. And I sat right back there where the guy with the hat is, right? I sat back there and I presented. And I said, I'd be more than happy to cooperate with the county to have mine tested. If they say, hey, you got $20,000 in something fixed, you know what? I'd agree, yeah, I'll tie in that. But they say, hey, you need a screw in your lid, I'm gonna pay the 47 cents to get my lid fixed. But that's the thing, you never gave us the opportunity to present to you that we have past systems. Because I guarantee you, and you just said, you set up there, 75% of them got failing systems. Where did you get that number?
I did not say 75%.
Yes, you did.
75% of them are original.
Already,
They're
where did
not
you get that number?
They're not.
Did you go test 75% of persons in the states to get that number?
No, I looked at what the health district had in their
Okay,
regulations.
well, let us get a test and see if it properly tests it.
It's beyond that.
Because it didn't happen. As soon as the EPA came out and issued the findings and orders, we were not permitted to go ahead and test everyone.
Expressing concern to the EPA about that?
Yes, and the EPA said no, because most of those systems would have to be offline discharging systems, which under the current rules are NPDES permitted, which is the EPA has that permit. And so the EPA said, no, and you can't go and test them to determine which ones are problems and replace the ones that are problems.
Actually, during the court case, we proposed to let a subcontractor come in and test each individual home to find the problem. And then we even proposed everybody chip in to fix those failing septics. Still be cheaper than what we're doing. And the health department came up with a new hoop to jump through, because there's all kinds of hoops we have to jump through, that only a licensed sanitarian could do it. So a subcontractor that puts in septics and test septics can't do it. It has to be somebody licensed, and there's not enough people to do it in a acceptable amount of time. It would take over a year, according to, because you couldn't find licensed sanitarians. This was a year and a half, a year ago.
That would have been done by now.
But the bottom line is always kicking the can down. It's just kick the can, let's keep kicking the can. Oh, let's see if we can get ARPA money. No, we already promised the money. Let's see if we can help. And the problem is since day one, actually since for 30, 40 years, when these septics were somewhat in their usable service life, they were saying that there were problems, according to Dave Sage. They came out in court. He's known because he grew up there. Why wasn't anything done? You're our government representatives. Where is our justice? Because anybody else, if I live in Chesterland, where I grew up, and my septic's stinking, my neighbor calls the health department gives me a fine. And they give me a ticket and say, fix it. Where's our due process? We don't get that.
No.
That's why the county's liable.
We just get fined $28,000 each. That's all we get, no process.
So I bought my house in '05. Nobody ever came out, nobody questioned it. I don't even know where my tanks are. County never questioned it. It's never been, as far as I know, that is, flush the toilet and it goes away, that's all I know. I'm in favor, I want to tie in. You know, I don't want to pay the $28,000. I think it was handled extremely poorly, the whole system, you know. There's houses that flow away, there's houses that have perfectly good septic systems, and nothing's been done in the, 10 years, 9 years, to identify the culprits. It's still flowing into the creek.
You don't even know if the culprit is inside the house.
Well, I think,
We
I know.
do know that.
Where is it?
Because it was in, the testing came from the drains that run just in that subdivision.
Well, there's I'm relatively certain, I've got, there's a pipe, a cap on a piece of pipe in my grass out in front, that I assume is.
Nicely placed between your two trees.
Not yours, no, not your pipe, you did a nice job on that, I appreciate that. But ever since I've been there, there's a piece of pipe sticking up in the ground with a stone in it or something, that I assume is the outflow from my system that goes into whatever this lateral pipe is. I don't know.
Just because I've been contacting the county, but I don't get any answers. Steve just said nicely placed pipe. Right? That's what he just said in Mike's yard. Yeah, nicely placed pipe in the yard. One, I mowed today, I probably kicked up about 150 rocks, because they didn't plant one seed, I swear to God. They found every weed they found. It was like, I'm sorry, put it here. And it's horrible. I contacted him because, one, the guy that's a foreman on Track's crew is my family member, so I know exactly how they dug. So I sat there and talked to him for 2.5 hours, right? So I told him, I was like, you guys ripped half my root system out of this big maple tree. He goes, yeah, unfortunately, he's probably gonna lose that. I went, okay. So I called, I go ahead and I call up the guy, I go, hey, this is a concern I have. I literally watched them dig it, they dug out all these root systems. And it's a big tree. When it takes it out, it's gonna take out my house, it's gonna hit my neighbor's house, or it's gonna take out my power lines and everything. So I asked him nicely, I was like, you guys took out 40 trees. Can you just take this one down because you guys have hurt the tree? My address is 10962. I want that out just so you guys can come check the tree out. And hopefully put some dirt down to some seed maybe. But the tree I asked about getting it removed because the county has paid for the other trees to get removed. Well now, my tree is dying out. This year I had very little blossom, nothing. But the county, I called them, some guy couldn't even call me back, I sent me a letter. Couldn't call him back, just had a simple question. And it was, well, we're not gonna do anything.
How much street?
How much?
Which street?
20. Front, yeah, Swing
Next to me.
It's about, I don't know, 4 feet in diameter.
Right
Big
by my
maple tree.
beautiful
But
bike.
again, that's an expensive takedown. I get it. But again, I'm liable for the tree. I just asked you guys to take the damn tree down when you had the whole company there taking down all the other trees. Because the root system's gonna die out. That whole tree is dead almost. And again, Charlotte's history being maple, that's a nice tree to have. I enjoyed it. But again, it's gonna die out. I'm upset about it, but I mean, it's part of construction. It's where you had to place a pipe and fill it with stone and weeds. But I mean, that's the big thing. Is I tried to take a little bit of pride. If you drive past my house now, yes, I've got the weed whack. Go ahead and judge me, whatever you want. I've got the weed whack. But still, I'd like to have some like nice dirt, some green grass, instead of weeds and rocks and a dead tree. But again, that's gonna be on top of my $28,000. So now I got $4,000 in tree removal. Plus I gotta get the stump ground, then I gotta clean all that up. Then I'm gonna have to dig through everything that's left of the root system because we have to do a tie-in. So my costs just keep going up. $28,000 ain't shit. I wish it was $28,000.
Right.
It's gonna be $55,000 when I'm done. I gotta buy pipe, I gotta buy stone, I gotta make sure I have the proper safety equipment. And yes, I'm digging mine myself, so I'm gonna save money. But again, these are all accumulated costs that we have to experience. And the 28,000 people, yeah, they're upset about it. I get it. Some people may not have some issues. The majority of the area is gonna have more than just the 28,000.
Yeah.
Plus your time, plus removal of a tree if you have to get to, because go figure, where I have to tie in, here's why I had to tie in, right? Here's where they put my tie in. So I have to go through the tree, over to get the tie in. So I have all these accumulated costs associated. When I contact the county, I don't try to get unreasonable. I listen, I've worked for cities. I do this is my job. I understand what it's like to get that angry resident. But at least we try working with them. Hey, you know, we'll do what we can. Not a letter of sorry. I mean, you guys took trees out for that specific reason, the tie-in issues. But when I contact to ask nicely about it, I get pound salt. Or we're gonna give you rocks and weeds. I mean, that's what I'm upset about. I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm pretty upset about presentation. That was horrible presentation.
It's been handled badly from the beginning.
You know, and the thing is, when I go up and talk to the different people that were landscaping, that had the landscape contract to maintain the distribution center, US Lawns, they were out there, I was talking to them, I couldn't even talk to them because they didn't speak English. So I was asking them, hey, you got any leftover dirt? Can you drop it off here? That was all I was asking, I would have done it myself. Like, oh, no, I guess we go, senor.
That is a big thing. I didn't consider that.
No.
Do you have any plans to, two things before I leave? Can I have an accounting of the project? Like, where does that go? Like, when it started, I got the money, started expending it, tracks. Do you have like an accounting for that?
Yeah.
Okay, can we get that?
Sure.
In a timely manner?
To all residents?
Yeah.
Just to satisfy what we're seeing and what you guys are telling us. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Can we have an accounting of the project? From the beginning to the end?
He said we'll do it this week.
Okay, so then, do you have any plan on doing anything with our roads there, and putting them back the way they were?
I have a brand new car and I've already got chips out of the paint on it because of your road.
Well, I know you're gonna
The
tell
one
me the
that wasn't
township
even
road,
said.
yada yada, but it wasn't like that when you got the handle on it.
And putting a 25 mile per hour speed limit doesn't fix it, okay? It's not near
Is
as.
there any money available?
The only thing I can say is we'll look into that.
You'll look
But there is, I mean, there are issues that are associated with that, so. With there being a township road.
You got some beautiful roads in Geauga County, they're beautiful. And I know that Dave Joyce is, here you go, take it, engineer, and go pave roads you probably don't need to be paved. So we can't get that road back, I mean, have you been down that road lately?
Not lately, no.
Give it a shot.
It's
Make sure
unacceptable.
you got a brand new car.
First of all, you destroyed the equity in our houses by slapping 50 grand on us, right? So now, right off the bat, how much is the house worth? Minus 50, okay, now it's worth that. And then you gotta drive down the road and go, no, I want to live here on this road. Like, I have to drive this road every day? You can at least, come on.
You should see the dust cloud the school buses pick up.
I mean, Jerry,
Somebody
this,
ought
I
to
mean,
talk to
you
the school
can't,
bus-
your heart
school
is like
district
zero,
about
like,
speed
what
buses.
is,
So,
bro,
I
you're
called.
like looking for every opportunity not to do anything here because you don't want to set a precedent. And it's really disheartening, it really is. Because I know you're sitting on a ton of cash, and you're sitting on a ton of cash too. Ton, 3 million, 30 million, plus. Don't tell me you're not. You don't have $3 million to cough up. You got $3 million in your shoe.
And there's some
I'm serious.
really nasty.
You wanna go out and break in, I know where there's some money. You buy it?
You go to Little Punderson and you go put in $3 million in a snack. Snack. But you won't, why? Because you have to answer to it. Yeah, you should be helping everybody out. If you couldn't help out Aquila and the ones before you, okay, fine. You gotta go with something, you have to put a plan going forward. You can't throw a bone and ask everybody to go away. This is a joke and you know it. You know it is. And I'm tired of these commissioners not being here. These guys gotta take the heat. Steve's gotta take the heat, Jim's gotta take the heat, you gotta take the heat, and these other two go sit in a hot tub? That's garbage.
I have another question. Why isn't Deep Springs involved in all this? Because they originate the stream that runs all along Denny. Why are they not being tested or?
They are being tested. They have their own wastewater treatment plant. That's permitted by the EPA. The EPA requires them to do testing on a regular basis.
When it rains, they open their floodgates and that's what goes all back, behind our houses.
They have a sewer system. They have their own wastewater.
Why are we looking into that?
Because it's tested and submitted and approved by the EPA.
Right, so it's operational, so why are we doing that? I guess,
We
one last
actually
thing I'd like to say.
did have a conversation with them early on in this process about being part of the system.
Just to hint for the future, just to try to keep a little heat off of you guys in the future, it's really degrading to have you stand here and tell us that, you 113 residents, you're trying to take more than your share of this or whatever. We all have our problems, you should do best for all of us. Seriously. When you made that remark, that was, I don't know, the rest of you were insulted, I was insulted. You got 113 residents who are trying to take this percentage of this or whatever. We're residents, we're all here, we're all doing, we're trying to make it. And you guys, it's very great to say something like that for your constituents, basically.
I've heard that argument at least 3 different meetings. And yet, in the last meeting, they approved over $1 million for Monroe Bridge. I've never been on Monroe.
And we pay for it.
And we're paying for it.
Don't hit us on that argument, okay?
Improvements to Monroe. Actually, I lied. I was on Monroe 20 years ago, once. And yet, I'm paying for that bridge. Why can't they assess the bridge for the bridge?
That's the road levy that you pay with your taxes.
Well, thank you for telling me.
That goes towards the engineer's office on what they do, and they have a program where I don't know exactly how many years it is, but they have a program set up on roads that they repair around the county on a yearly basis, and that's one of them.
Thank you.
That was tough.
Okay. As I say, if there's anything else, I'll be around if anybody wants to
I have
come up
one
and.
question. Okay, this is probably ridiculous for Steve, but why couldn't the county take out another loan and use the ARPA funds to pay the first loan? And then we don't have to pay.
Still in a roundabout way paying off the first loan.
Okay, fine. I know we're not getting anywhere.
We'd be
County does
using.
not care about its residents. I've sat here, I've been quiet, I've tried. The downright truth is, none of you people care because you're living in your little gold castle. We're all gonna lose our houses. How much Section 8 housing do you people have? You don't have enough. We're gonna have to be in Section 8 housing because we're gonna lose everything. You don't care. Honestly, you do not care. I used to respect you, Jerry, but now I do not. And I know you don't care about that. It doesn't matter that you've lost my respect. You don't care. I don't respect any of the officials. At the moment, I wish I hadn't voted for Jim Borak. I mean, I think we're all in big trouble, and I don't think the county cares anything about it. Not once, not a tiny little bit. I don't think anybody cares, and it proves it right now.
I'm sorry you feel that way, but unfortunately, we have rules and regulations.
You have rules can be bent, rules can be broken, rules can be changed. You don't want to change anything because you think 113 houses don't matter. You don't think we matter, and that's it. You basically stood up there and said, we don't matter, we don't count.
As far as money coming from the general fund for the county, there's an issue with spending money for water resources for these types of projects with the general fund money. The prosecutor provided us with that if we did that, if we used the general fund money, if the ARPA funds aside, if we use the general fund money, that would open us up, open the county up to a taxpayer lawsuit that we would lose.
My septic system runs to back. It doesn't run to the ditch to the road. Yes, you totally trashed our ditch. We can't even mow it because they didn't fix it. There's gravel in it everywhere. They took their big equipment and drove it in and out of our driveway. And the pipe at the end of the driveway is now broken. Who has to pay for that? Me. Because when I called Trax, they said, not our problem, call the county. I called the county says, not our problem, call Trax.
The government knows. Do you know who you talked to at the county?
I don't know for sure. That was last summer. The bottom of my driveway is now this way.
What is your address?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
What's your address?
10873 Kenny. Yeah, the driveway was even. Now it goes like this at the bottom. I mean, that's another expense. I mean, it keeps rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. And it's like, hey, why did I just give you $1 million?
Well, if there was an issue with that was caused by the contractor,
Yes, I called
with the
them
culvert
several
and
times
that,
about this.
we will address it.
Okay, and they just didn't even ask if they could move their equipment into our driveway and let us sit there. Now, that in itself is completely rude and ridiculous. I think they ought to be fined and they ought to have to be paying for some of this stuff. But they did.
And that's what we will be doing. If that's an issue that was caused by the contractor, we will get it
We can't
fixed.
mow anything anymore.
It was. Until somebody said Munson didn't want to get Munson Township for Sharp Township. Since when was it But as a favor, we moved it forward. But we kept on Bobby trying to negotiate Sharp That's the end of
I understand, I've been there not too long.
they wouldn't do it because they jumped ownership.
You got a girl like the rest.
So it's not trying to do that for years.
You got a hell of a wedge.
When they do the median house, it doesn't make sense. So
Are you talking about? I'm just, yeah, it's a, but no, certainly flooding is an issue. I will get with stormwater because they would handle it.
I don't know, do you wanna look at this one? Come down and look at it, I was
If you don't hear from stormwater by this time next week, call me. Sometimes they don't necessarily, I'm not saying they don't purposely do it, but sometimes they just get lost in the shark. It doesn't work, so.
No, I didn't want to bring that up, because that was the new news that everybody.
Thank you.
But I'd like to know that.
Yeah, no, that's also.
And then somebody will, I know.
We don't wanna put, we don't put stuff in line.
13 of them still being the boss.
If the county's gonna take over, it has to be done. I don't know what. Right away. Now, from the meter to the house, if you wanna.
It's not for a road.
You're responsible for it.
Is that scheduled?
440-313.
I think it is. Another thing, explosion proof area. We have that lift station.
You better have your contact information.
And then who will call me?
Somebody from soil water. I don't know who, but there's still people that work there, so I'll talk to Carmelo,
But
who's
said,
the director.
I have a first sheet. We don't have.
Thank you.
Kid yet, have a process. We don't have an engineer on staff, so now we hire one next week. Jeff Ross, and he's out in GPT. He can speak specifically to the project.
Jerry is.
Hey, just want to let you know, you still have a little bit of butt left. I want to kill you. You would throw it. This is fact.
Explosion proof.
I dug it out.
What are you, Mr. MSNBC?
They send me shit down in Florida and I gotta sit there all day long.
You're playing two sides.
No, I'm not playing.
No, not you.
Oh, you're talking to me. Yeah. Well, I want to know if it's favor of the septic. There's the ones I was going to
I didn't figure out that. She'll go to the fire.
What we gotta be going is this, Ralph asked me to this YouTube. When I was in Florida, I wasn't here either, but I watched it. When he gets up and says, you should go to the trustees in our office. In 2015, when this thing started, I was still police chief. This is a list of points I was gonna. Whatever. But we're gonna go back to the files. These are John Steele notes.
No, I'm not looking at them.
And also the minutes from that meeting. And it was the legal code associated with that.
Plus waiting the other fees, plus lowering the interest rate, it's all that is about $1 million. And it's either gonna come from ARPA funds or from our general fund. $1 million towards this situation.
But it's possible. Okay.
I just want to go back.
Well, like 2680 was not gonna call EPA, like was working for the health department. And I pointed out where the trustees did have to sign a complaint.
I tried, I'm gonna tell them that too. I tried to get an estimate.
If I had a chance that night. And again. Well, I have him.
So now now we're free.
I'm trying. I don't doubt the wall. I'm not that much. He asked me about buying a place in Florida.
Well, I work with this guy. That building is larger than half of the headquarters company.
I know.
I work for.
Marrying into this thing.
Everything that's on this campus started.
You inherit a lot of shit.
AFS department, and our department on it.
Well, I mean, well, like you said, they're not started out. Well, that lets you a different method of funding. Well, unless they go a different method.
Oh, engineers.
No, I heard that.
I
I
asked
heard
a
it
couple
was
contractors
part of
about
it.
ESPN. They went
Well,
up
tell you what.
That's not the ones I'm worried about.
permits, and they told them no, that they were still in litigation.
That's what these EPA is, they take them in. They
must have.
cluster.
Wherever they go
Mr. Why is that?
he was gonna give me an estimate, he wanted to know what his permits were, I
Well, you know,
guess.
there's a whole lot of stuff. Dave said-
I go back 30 years ago. But he's also suing.
Okay.
They're gonna say that, because we haven't turned this.
It's not over.
They'll just need to.
I guarantee this, I got 3 more years and I'm done. I turned 66 at the end of the month. I turned 66 at the end of the month. Yeah, but I spent
He told me it was about $4,500. I said, what? Okay. Okay, that's what I thought, yeah. My septic's way in my
They may not
backyard.
get a permit right now.
Uh-huh.
Until we get systems, issues you want.